Hello, everyone. My name is Aaron Romero. I am a financial aid counselor in the Office of Financial Aid here at Montclair State. I'm going to be sharing my screen in a moment, and we're going to be going over everything with regards to financial aid. What does a financial aid package look like? What does it consist of? We're also going to be looking into how aid eligibility is determined, the different types of financial resources that encompass a financial aid package, and specifics regards to that. So what I do ask is that if you have any questions, you are definitely free to ask them. Just leave them in the chat. And what I'll do is after the presentation, I will answer as many of the like questions as possible. So without further ado, let us begin. So let's talk about financial aid. Everything that I'm going to talk about here with respect to the different financial aid resources available to students, it's pretty much the same anywhere you go, depending on the university that you go to. The only difference will probably be any institutional aid that students can actually receive. But without further ado, let us begin. So what is financial aid? Financial aid is a comprehensive term that includes the following aid resources, and they're grants. These grants can be awarded by the federal government and the state of New Jersey as well. In this state, if you are a New Jersey state resident, this is contingent upon completion of a FAFSA. A grant is need-based financial aid, so we determine that by financial need. There are also scholarships. These can be awarded by the institution, us, Montclair State. They can also be awarded by a third-party vendor. We also have loans as well. Specifically, financial aid loans pertain to, upon completion of a FAFSA, you can qualify for a federal loan where the federal government is a borrower. The loan is in the name of the student. There are also Parent Plus loans and private loans. You can go to a private vendor for that. And finally, there is an additional financial aid resource called Federal Work Study. I'll actually go over that in future slides. So the types of financial aid, right? Let's talk about grants first. Essentially what grants are funds that are awarded to students based on financial need. And these types of aid resources are awarded to students and you do not have to pay them back, right? But it also is contingent upon completion of a FAFSA. So when you complete a FAFSA, they're going to look at in this specific upcoming academic year, the 2021's taxes are going to determine the financial need for the upcoming 2023-24 academic year. So if you haven't done your FAFSA already, make sure that you do, because you could qualify for the following resources here. The first federal Pell Grant is a federal grant. Also, this is need-based. Then there is the SCOG grant. This is also a federal grant, but the eligibility for this grant is based on the FAFSA filing date. So essentially, the FAFSA opens October 1st of every year, with the priority deadline also being February 1st of every year. So if you applied for your FAFSA between October 1st and February 1st, you could have seen an SCOG award on your account. But if you haven't, you just know that in the future, you could qualify for an SCOG grant. You just have to file the FAFSA by the priority deadline. The unique thing about the state of New Jersey, we also have an abundance of state financial aid for students, and they're broken down as follows. There is the tuition aid grant. You must be a New Jersey resident and have resided in New Jersey for at least 3 months. You also need to have graduated from a New Jersey high school as well. Then there's the Educational Opportunity Fund. This is also a state grant, but this is based on financial need. I'm going to go into the specifics in future slides, but essentially this is a grant that the state of New Jersey targeted for students that come from economically disadvantaged backgrounds. I can go over to more of that, but just know that there is a unique admissions process in Montclair State and every college. And then finally, there is the Garden State Guarantee. This is a newer program. This is actually an institutional grant for juniors and seniors that are based on income. If you meet the certain income eligibility requirements, you could receive all tuition and fees paid for after all federal resources are applied. So after your federal Pell Grants, as well as state grants as well. And now federal work study. What federal work study is essentially jobs on campus. So when you complete your FAFSA, there is actually a question that says, would you like to be considered eligible for federal work study? And federal work study is an additional financial award, but it's not directly applied to a student's bill. The way that federal work study works is that students work on campus in any of a department, of which I actually supervise student workers in the Office of Financial Aid, so I'm very versed in it. So these students qualify for federal work study. They'll work in one of our offices on campus, and they'll be making New Jersey state minimum wage, which right now it's $14.13 an hour, and they'll work X amount of hours per week, and essentially their federal work study award, they'll be withdrawing from that. So generally students will probably get like $1,000 to $2,000 of federal work study for an academic year. And essentially they'll work 5 to no more than 19 hours a week at an office. The cool thing about that is that we know that the students are students first. So we're not necessarily going to tie or hamper students to having to come to work. We want students to succeed. And it's also a good retention tool. The more that you're on campus and you work on campus too, the more successful that students are. So federal work study, you must meet financial eligibility criteria and the FAFSA filing deadline. Remember that the funding comes directly from the government. And now let's talk about scholarships, not just the scholarships that we could possibly award to students. The Office of Financial Aid does not directly apply scholarships to students, to incoming freshman students' accounts. That is the job of the Office of Undergraduate Admissions. They can award a presidential scholarship to students. But we in the Office of Financial Aid can also provide scholarships for continuing students. So once a GPA is populated, so at least a semester, you could qualify for institutional scholarships. But this right here is a list of any third-party scholarships that students can look towards for resources. There's a lot of third-party scholarships out there, just that the students and their parents have to objectively do the legwork as to try to find where these scholarships are and then try to get them. A couple examples are listed here: your high school guidance office, your local library, a parent's place of employment. Sometimes they have tuition assistance programs because you work at a certain company. Another unique resource that I like to point out to parents and students is scholarship search engines. These are websites like collegeboard.org, fastweb.com, scholarships.com. Those are the most reputable ones, the links that you see there. Essentially, they're a scholarship search engine. So you'll go to this one website, you'll fill out a bunch of demographic information, as well as possibly they'll ask you some questions about you, and on your behalf, they will send your application to a bunch of different scholarship vendors throughout the country. So you can get a scholarship for being left-handed, you can get a scholarship for being Hispanic, et cetera, et cetera. You just gotta have to do the legwork and try to find these resources. This is also considered financial aid. It depends really on the type of scholarship vendor. They'll sometimes send the scholarship checks directly to you, the students. Just make sure that it is addressed to Montclair State University. If it is addressed to you personally, kind of have one of two options. Number one, sign the back of the check and then bring it in to us, the Office of Student Accounts, or you can cash it on your own and then you can use the money however you see fit. But it is intended for your studies, so make sure you do that. But these are, like I said, additional resources that are available. So what is the FAFSA? Everything that I listed, with the exception of third-party scholarships, are all contingent upon completion of the FAFSA. The FAFSA is an acronym for the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. In order to apply for a FAFSA, you need to go on to studentaid.gov. And what the completion of a FAFSA does, it qualifies you for the following: federal grants, like the Pell Grant and the SCOG, federal loans like the Stafford Direct Subsidized and Unsubsidized Loan, even a Parent Plus loan if you want to go through that route. The also federal work study program, as long as you apply by the priority deadline. Institutional grants, like presidential scholarships that the Office of Undergraduate Admissions awards students, as well as resident grants, as long as you apply early. And then because we're in the state of New Jersey, your FAFSA data, so your federal aid application, is also sent to the state of New Jersey, HESA, which stands for the Higher Education Student Assistance Authority. And your data is also sent there to their governing body to see if you qualify for any state grants, like the New Jersey TAG grant, like the EOF grant. So the way that financial aid is applied, it is going to apply to tuition and fees first. And then if there's anything remaining after that, then it goes to campus housing and meal plans if you are if you choose to dorm on campus. Now, if you're getting more financial aid than how much school costs, that credit is entitled to you. But it is used for this with the purpose and intention of using your credit balance to pay for school, pay for books, transportation, what have you. So just know that that's what financial aid is purposed for, even if you get more financial aid than your charges. Okay, so every school has different filing requirements, but I will tell you that the application deadlines and openings are the same. So October 1st of every year is when the FAFSA is available to students. And in this academic year specifically, it's a little confusing, I know. You're going to use taxes from 2 years prior for the current, for the upcoming academic year. So in this case, you're using 2021's income data for your 2023-24 FAFSA. Now, let's say next year, you're going to use 2022's income for your 2024-2025 FAFSA. So just remember that it's always prior. And remember also for us, our priority deadline for the FAFSA is February 1st of every year. So just remember October 1st of every year and February 1st of every year. Applying by February 1st could determine you eligible for aid like the SCOG grant, like any institutional grants as well. So rule of thumb, think of your FAFSA deadline as February 1st every year. In these next few slides here, I'm going to show you how to actually apply for a FAFSA if you haven't done so already. Once you go on studentaid.gov, you're going to apply for an FSA ID. That stands for a Federal Student Aid ID. So every parent and every student needs to create their separate FSA IDs. Make sure that you use separate email addresses and make sure that you use email addresses that you actively use to create your FSA ID. Because a lot of students coming out of high school are assigned a high school email address, and that's what they use as the primary method of communication. Students, if you are listening, make sure that once you graduate high school, if you haven't done so already, create your own email address like a Gmail or a Hotmail that you're going to use, because your FSA ID essentially counts as your electronic signature when you are completing your FAFSA. You don't want to use a high school email address because one day, once you graduate high school, that address will deactivate, and then you have to go through the hassle of creating an FSA or changing your email address and all that to verify that it's you. So make sure that your students and parents are using active email addresses, because that is how the federal government, as well as the state of New Jersey, will that counts as your electronic signature, and any correspondence as it relates to your financial aid package throughout your academic career, the federal government will communicate to students via the email address that is the FSA ID. And once you go to studentaid.gov, this is what it looks like. Remember that the FAFSA, the first F in FAFSA, is free. Don't go to FAFSA.com, don't go to FAFSA.org. Those are scam websites that essentially charge students to then send their information to the FAFSA. So what I like to say is, remember that the FAFSA is free. You're going to studentaid.gov. And it looks like this. So definitely, if it doesn't look like this, don't try to put in your personal information on the FAFSA at all. So what's cool about the FAFSA is that it's actually a lot easier for students and parents to complete than in years past. I know a lot of parents that may have gone to college probably remember the days of the paper FAFSA, where you had to actually fill everything out by hand and in person. Then there was a season where you can file your you just get your taxes and you have to go line by line and put in the numbers that are populated in the appropriate fields. Now and today we have something that is called the IRS data retrieval tool. This is both for the student and the parent. As long as certain tax filing conditions are met, FAFSA will actually take you to the IRS website to autocomplete some of this income data. And the data that comes back into the FAFSA will be kind of cloaked so that you can't edit it. We recommend using the IRS data retrieval tool because it eliminates paperwork later, because essentially what the verification process is, if you are selected for it, is that we found that there is a discrepancy on your FAFSA to your taxes, because we look up by the social security number how we determine need-based aid. So if there's any discrepancy, we're going to ask for paperwork to verify. We recommend using the data retrieval tool for that exact reason. You're literally consenting the FAFSA to go into the IRS website to populate your 2021 tax info so that it's completely seamless. So use the IRS data retrieval tool if you can. That way you won't have to worry about any sort of delays with your financial aid package. So to wrap up this portion of the presentation, this is what data you are going to report when you apply for a FAFSA. Number one, you're going to apply your income. That is prior, so the 2021 year for this upcoming FAFSA. Then you're going to report savings and investments as of the filing date of your FAFSA. So whatever the current market value of any investments, if you have any, or the current value of your savings account, if any, as of the day that you file the FAFSA. And then finally, for the family size, you want to project it for the upcoming academic year. The reason why I say this is because sometimes, students are expecting or students' parents are expecting another little brother or little sister in the household size. Let's say if that child will be born in October, but you're filling out the FAFSA now, include the unborn child that is to be born onto the FAFSA, because family size is also considered in determining aid eligibility. If you have any questions with regards to the FAFSA, I mean, of course, you can contact Montclair State University's financial aid office, but what I recommend you guys do too, is before you contact us, if you're hitting a wall, is to follow the link here, which is studentaid.gov. It's the FAFSA filing website, but it's straight out of the horse's mouth, being the Department of Education. So you really want to use this resource. It is actually very comprehensive, and I'm not just saying that. The studentaid.gov website for any questions with respect to how to file a FAFSA, how to file it correctly, etc. Definitely use this resource here. And if you're still stumped, don't hesitate to contact us. We'll be able to guide you through it. If not us in financial aid, then definitely Red Hawk Central, who is trained in financial aid. Once you complete your FAFSA, you're going to receive something called a student aid report via email. At this point in time, you want to check the student aid report for any errors to the FAFSA or any omissions. I'm talking things as simple as getting one number on your social security number off. Or if you have multiple last names, you want to make sure that you're using whatever name is tied to the social security number. These are common things that you want to look for. Making sure that you're listing the appropriate schools on the FAFSA, because if, let's say you complete your FAFSA, but you don't list Montclair State as a school, then we're never going to receive it. So make sure that you're going to provide, list the schools that you want the financial aid, your FAFSA to be sent to. If you cannot see your student aid report, that's a very clear indicator that you may have errors that have to be corrected on the FAFSA. So if you don't have a student aid report, you may have to log back in and just triple check that everything's okay. If not, you can contact us in financial aid. We may have to refer you to the federal government, but it's very rare for student aid reports to not show up after completion of a FAFSA. Just know that when you do complete it, you will see it, check it. If you don't get one, then certainly there is something that needs to be corrected on it. So once you complete the FAFSA, where does it go? It's going to go to two places. The first place is it's going to go to the Social Security Administration, because when you complete a FAFSA, you are going to list your Social Security number on it, and also you're providing all your tax information. So it's going to go to the Social Security Administration first. Then it's going to go to the Department of Homeland Security, because if we are using federal funds to pay for John Doe school, we want to make sure that John Doe in fact exists. So, that's why it's sent to the Department of Homeland Security. And then the results of the FAFSA are going to be sent to the schools that are listed. Hint, hint, make sure that you include Montclair State on that list if you decide to come here. And it's also going to be sent to the state of New Jersey, which is HESA. HESA stands for the Higher Education Student Assistance Authority. And so the state of New Jersey will actually follow up with you with any question, with any additional document that they may need to determine state aid eligibility. So HESA is what you should be looking out for. So who is eligible to apply for a FAFSA? Well, this is a list of the aid eligibility requirements here. So you must have graduated high school or at least have any sort of equivalency like a GED. You must be enrolled in an eligible degree program. That means like, a traditional bachelor's degree, Title IV credits. This isn't like a certificate with their continuing education program or a job training. This is, you're enrolling and trying to complete a bachelor's degree ideally. U.S. citizen or an eligible non-citizen, think permanent residents who also have a green card or alien registration number. That's a common eligible non-citizen. There's also, certain visa types. Students that seek asylum status from other countries could potentially receive aid, but the general population are going to be U.S. citizens or eligible non-citizens. And then you must also have a valid social security number in order to be eligible to apply for the FAFSA. So here are some common mistakes that I kind of alluded to previously in the presentation. Make sure that you're really thoroughly checking your FAFSA because any sort of discrepancy is going to delay the process significantly. So make sure that the social security number is correct. Also, do not constantly update the FAFSA. Right? Maybe with the exception of schools that you wanted to be sent to, don't constantly update the FAFSA, especially the financial information, because that's going to trigger a red flag with the Department of Education, and then our office or any office of financial aid is going to have to follow up with you and you're going to be selected for verification. In short, it's going to prolong the process. So don't constantly update the FAFSA. Make sure that it's accurate the first time. And if you're going to go back in it, it really should be just to add additional schools or remove others. Not sure which parents to include on the FAFSA is also a common mistake. So the rule of thumb is this: if mom and dad are living in separate houses or any of your parents living in separate houses, whoever provides more than 50% of support to the child is the parent that should be reported on the FAFSA. Putting parent income information in the student area. It's going to make you considerably less eligible because if parents don't make anything but the student makes as much as mom and dad makes, then you're going to be considered ineligible for any need-based aid because it's going to show that you make money to do so. So don't do that. Listing income tax paid as equal to total income. That's also a common mistake. And then finally, the incorrect marital status. Make sure that the marital status is reflected accurately in the FAFSA because that has implication with respect to household size and other factors to determine aid eligibility. Okay. Oops, hold on. Sorry about that. All right, so now we're going to shift gears and we're going to talk about the state grants. So to give a little background, the state of New Jersey has an abundance of state aid resources in the form of like the tuition aid grant and the EOF grant. When you complete your FAFSA, your data is automatically going to be sent to HESA to determine state aid eligibility. So once you complete your FAFSA, you're going to want to go straight to newjerseygrants.org. And newjerseygrants.org is going to take you to a website that's going to say NJFAMS. Once you see NJFAMS, applicants should log on to NJFAMS and create a user ID and a password to check and complete any outstanding items on their to-do list, because the state of New Jersey could in fact ask for additional documentation like tax returns to determine state aid eligibility. Just know that the eligibility determination, any inquiries with regards to state aid really is a question for HESA, not us in Montclair. And what HESA does, they do a very good job in communicating what they need to the NJFAMS portal. So make sure that once you complete your FAFSA, You go right onto njgrants.org and you create your username and password. Your FAFSA is going to be sent there, and you can check literally to see under a tab that says document tracking if the state of New Jersey is asking for additional documentation. You must set up your HESA profile in order to receive any information as it pertains to your state grants. If HESA needs additional information, they will contact you at the email provided on your FAFSA and through your HESA account. So this goes back to me talking again, make sure you're using an email address that you're actively looking for, or that you're actually looking into, because the federal government, as well as the state of New Jersey, will be communicating to students and parents through those email addresses. So no more high school email address. So now let's talk about EOF. EOF is an acronym for the Educational Opportunity Fund, and it is a specific state grant program designed to provide funding and academic support to students from educationally and demographically disadvantaged areas within the state of New Jersey. So in order to be determined eligible for EOF, obviously there needs to be certain income level requirements, because this is also a need-based grant. And not only is it a need-based grant, it's also additional tutoring services, additional academic advising services. It's really a large cohort of students that comes from these disadvantaged backgrounds, and they provide extra support to them in the form of finances and educational resources. So students must submit additional documentations via Slate. Slate is a software that we use to determine EOF eligibility. The Office of Undergraduate Admissions will actually give students instructions on how to upload these documents onto Slate. You're going to complete a questionnaire, and essentially you have to just demonstrate a history of being economically disadvantaged. So we're going to look at 2021's taxes as well as 2020's taxes. Files are going to be reviewed for eligibility, and essentially you must show that history across 2 years that you could be EOF eligible. So there are income and asset limits as a result. If accepted into the EOF program, keep in mind that students must attend the mandatory 6-week summer program. It's kind of like an extended orientation to kind of help students get acclimated to the college environment, as well as develop a familiarity with professors and academic advisors in EOF. And they do a lot of like social events with other kids in the program as well, so that they can be well indoctrinated and have a good support system while at Montclair State. So now let's talk about parents and students who may be DACA or Dreamer or undocumented. So first things first, if you fall under this criteria, you are ineligible to receive any federal aid. That means that any resources from the federal government, federal Pell Grants, SCOG grants, federal loans, if you are undocumented or on this status, unfortunately, you are not at this time eligible to receive federal aid. However, New Jersey students who are DACA or Dreamer status may receive state aid. So this is directly through the state of New Jersey. So students must file the New Jersey Alternative Financial Aid application directly through HESA.org. And you essentially could receive state aid in order to help receive another financial aid resource to pay for school. So undocumented students with or without DACA status. This is the eligibility requirements. Number one, you need to have graduated or received equivalent of a high school diploma from a New Jersey high school. You need to have attended at least 3 years of high school in New Jersey. You must be attending a New Jersey college or university and be enrolled in at least 12 credits per semester at a 4-year institution, so like Montclair, or at least 6 credits per semester at a 2-year institution. So think the community colleges like Essex Community College, Bergen Community College. There are also additional requirements that HESA communicates to students with that as well. So you may want to, if you fall under this criteria, you want to fill out the alternative aid application. And you will see what additional requirements the state of New Jersey may ask for. And then also, all students every year must submit an affidavit to the college or university that they are attending. And essentially what the affidavit is you are stating your name and you are stating that any funding that you receive from the state of New Jersey is going to be used solely for the purpose of educational uses. So that's pretty much what the affidavit is. Parents of dependent students are strongly advised to file taxes if you are a DACA or a Dreamer. The reason why is because you could qualify for a New Jersey TAG grant, you could qualify for an EOF grant because these are state aid resources. But we need to know if you filed taxes because that's what aid eligibility is contingent upon. If this is need-based aid, then the metric to determine financial need is based on the taxes from the years that they're requesting. So that's why we strongly advise parents of dependent students to file taxes. So there's other important things that you need to know with respect to how the university communicates with students with regards to financial aid or anything with respect to student services. Most colleges will communicate via email in their institutional portal. So our institutional portal is called Nest. And if you have a Montclair email address, that's through Gmail. And once you're accepted and have your net ID, you will be given a Montclair email address. And that's how we in the Office of Financial Aid, as well as any other department on campus, will communicate with students. So make sure if you have any questions, read the school website for information about the financial aid process and requirements, and really develop a system to keep track of multiple communications from several colleges. I understand that, not everyone here is exactly deposited and set on coming to Montclair. You may or may not be choosing between a multitude of schools depending on the financial aid package they give you. But I will tell you that the method of communication that we, as well as other colleges, are kind of the same in that we really communicate via email and the student portal. And if you decide to come to Montclair, we primarily communicate through the student issued email addresses that we assign students once they're enrolled in school. So you can't expect to have us communicate to students and parents through a personal email address. We issue the university email address for that specific purpose. So develop a system to keep track of communications with several different colleges in this season. Oops, sorry about that. Okay, so now let's talk about a request for review, right? We understand that even though we are in 2023, we're 2 years removed from the years that we determine financial need, right? If there has been a change since 2021 in the household income as a result of things like loss of employment or loss of unemployment even, separation and divorce, heaven forbid, a death or disability, or medical expenses paid, you must complete the request for review form located at the link below. If you go on montclair.edu and type in request for review, you can also do it that way. And you're going to follow instructions on how to submit these documents. Essentially, you're going to show that you're not making as much money as you did in 2021, and you need your financial aid package to reflect the need that is current as a result of any of the 4 things that I listed previously. With that said, you're going to have to probably provide, unemployment benefits, W-2s for your current year, your current taxes. If it's a separation or divorce, you're going to probably want to provide proof that your parents live in separate addresses, for example, and you live with, one parent. These are the things that you want to consider. I will tell you that the request for reviews aren't currently live at this point. So if you type in request for review, it's going to be for this current academic year. I believe it's going to open up like around May or so. So just continue to check montclair.edu and the request for review tab. And if you are checking it and you don't really see any updates to it, email us at financialaid@montclair.edu. We want to make sure students get the most up-to-date financial aid package to make a decision on coming here. So that is available to students and parents to do. Just know that it is going to be a little bit more arduous of a process because you're going to have to provide documentation to prove the change in income from 2021 to current. So to wrap up this presentation, just remember a few things, right? Financial aid is aid. It's not a gift, right? A lot of students' financial aid packages will consist of loans as well. And if a student takes out loans for a semester and decides not to come back, or decides not to doesn't do so well in their first few semesters, you're going to have to pay these loans back. You're going to have to pay these financial aid resources back if you don't do well. And just remember that it's aid. It's supposed to assist you in coming to school. It's not supposed to, pay you in that sense. In most cases, families will have some financial responsibility, some sort of out-of-pocket cost, especially if you are coming from out of state, or if you decide to dorm on campus. A lot of students' bills and out-of-pocket costs will come towards or come as a result of dorming on campus and having a meal plan on campus. So you want to discuss these costs as a family and make the best decision for you. The earlier that you start with the process, the better. So make sure, again, the FAFSA opens on October 1st of every year, and the priority deadline is February 1st of every year. I mean, you can apply for it afterwards, but you probably won't get any of the any additional grants because of it. Montclair State University will process your FAFSA once you are accepted into the university. So if you did your FAFSA before applying to Montclair, we're not going to get it until you actually are formally accepted. Then we will receive the FAFSA. So that goes the same as probably with other institutions as well, because the Department of Education isn't going to give you a financial aid package if they don't know that you're actually going to go to the school to begin with. So just keep that in mind as well. This about wraps up my presentation, but what I'm going to do is for the next 10 minutes or so, I'm going to look at the questions that any parents and students list on the chat, and I'm going to kind of announce them. If there's a lot of similar questions, I'll ask it for the floor, and then I will answer it for everybody. So let's see what we have here. Let's see. First question here. Okay, so I can go over the tuition grant requirements. So like I alluded to before, financial aid through the federal government as well as the state of New Jersey is based on financial need, right? So here is the grand equation as to how you can determine whether you're going to get financial aid or not. The equation is cost of attendance minus estimated family contribution equals need. So what is cost of attendance? Cost of attendance is not necessarily your bill and your charges. It's what Montclair State formally says how much it costs to come here between tuition and fees, room and board, other direct costs with school, as well as indirect costs with school. So things like transportation, if you're driving and you got to put gas in your car, or if you're taking a bus. Books are also an indirect cost. That's what constitutes as cost of attendance. So a lot of students and parents may have gotten, if accepted to the university, like a cost of attendance sheet. So there's that. EFC, or estimated family contribution, is based on financial need. That's your guys' side of the house, where you complete your FAFSA, you provide 2021's tax information, and based on the tax information, you are determined an EFC, which kind of is a grandiose way of saying, this is how much the federal government thinks you can pay out of pocket to school. And essentially, the lower the EFC, the more need you will have, because cost of attendance minus EFC equals need. So federal Pell Grants, federal SCOG grants, New Jersey state tag grants, as well as the EOF grants, they're all contingent upon financial need. So that's why it's imperative to complete a FAFSA, because that will be the only measurement as which you can qualify for any need-based aid. And again, if 2021's financial information doesn't accurately reflect what you're taking home in 2023, you may want to consider doing the request for review as a result. Let's see what other questions. Okay. somebody said, hi, if I were to update my FAFSA from commuter to on-campus living, would my financial aid package update before the May 1st deadline? I highly recommend you do it sooner than later, because you could qualify for different institutional aid resources as well. The Office of Residence Life could provide students with a resident grant if you know that you're dorming, and the only way that we know that you're dorming at this point is if you list that you are on your FAFSA. So make sure to do that already if you haven't. For those of you who want to schedule an appointment to meet a financial aid counselor such as myself, hold on, let me take my camera off here so that you can see my face. Stand by. All right, sorry about that. So if, let's see, if you want to schedule an appointment with a financial aid advisor, you can. What I recommend you do is go to montclair.edu. You can type in telecounseling. We have telecounseling appointments with financial aid counselors, such as myself. You can actually speak on the phone or on a Zoom meeting one-on-one with the financial aid counselor to go over any specific questions that you have as it pertains to, you, the student's financial aid package, any questions that the students or parents may have. Just keep in mind that when you schedule this appointment, the student has to be present due to the Federal Educational Rights and Privacy Act, which is a federal law. If parents are trying to inquire about a student's information as it pertains to their financial aid, they're registering for classes and stuff, we legally cannot communicate any of that to the parents if the student is not present. So if you're going to create an appointment with a counselor, just make sure that the student is present, or you, the student, if you want to ask yourself, just make sure you're present, and we'll answer any questions that you have with respect to your financial aid package. If you do not create a HESA profile, you run the risk of not being eligible for any state aid. That is the only way that students can be eligible for state aid. You have to create a HESA profile in order to see if you are being asked to provide any additional documentation for state aid. So, if you want to go the route of using state aid or potentially getting state aid to pay for school, definitely create a HESA profile. Let's see. Somebody asked what grade point average is required to receive an additional scholarship annually. Really, this is a question for the Office of Undergraduate Admissions, because we in the Office of Financial Aid do not provide scholarships for incoming freshmen. That is strictly up to the Office of Undergraduate Admissions, so you want to reach out to them with regards to that. I will tell you that they also have telecounseling appointments as well. If you just type in, Office of Undergraduate Admissions, you can schedule an appointment with an admissions counselor, and they can kind of give you specifics as regard to any merit-based scholarships for incoming freshmen. For any transfer students, we do not offer transfer scholarships for transfer students. The reason is because we need to, in order to receive a merit-based scholarship, we need to know what your academic performance is. So us in financial aid, continuing students and transfer students after a semester or so, then there can be merit-based aid or additional aid that we can give to students based on merit. But in terms of incoming freshmen that are coming in fall 2023, the Office of Undergraduate Admissions is the governing body for any incoming freshman scholarships. Let's see. If somebody asked if you do room and board, do you have to take the meal plan? I would think that the answer is yes, because if you're dorming on campus, how would you eat? But I would think that you may have the option to elect out of it, because I know that the Office of Residence Life is an office, and I know that the meal plan office is a separate office. So I think that that would be a question for the Office of Residence Life. But that's something that you may want to consider as well. Another person asked, when would bills be due and how students would be notified? So let me give you a little background as to how the calendar works here at Montclair. The fiscal year for us starts every July. So June 30th is the end of one fiscal year. July 1st is the start of the upcoming fiscal year. In July, the Board of Trustees, as well as the president of the college, will kind of meet to determine what the rates are going to be for the upcoming academic year. Until that meeting happens, essentially, and until those rates are finalized, then bills will be available to students. Typically, that happens around mid to late July. To give you a metric as to when bills were available last year, they were available around July 25th, July 27th. And students and parents, well, students will be notified that bills are available via the Montclair email address. The Office of Student Accounts will communicate to students that bills are available. And then it will, and it is really through email only. Any of our offices do not reach out via phone unless you schedule an appointment, and we don't reach out to personal email addresses either. It's really all through the student email address. Let's see. Is there a recommended amount of federal loans versus private loans to take out? I mean, you want to borrow responsibly, right? You don't want to borrow a significant amount and, and then you have such a leftover balance. You want to borrow responsibly, but I will say that there are loan limits depending on whether you are a freshman, sophomore, junior, or senior. So essentially, the more credits that you have, the more that you can kind of borrow over your academic year or your academic career. So with that said, I believe the loan limits for freshman students, it ranges from credits. So up to 29 credits, you can receive up to 5,500 in loans for a year. And then anything after that, it kind of goes like that. So really borrow as much as you need. And just keep in mind that these are loans and you have to pay back. I will say that federal loans are feature the lowest interest rates, especially compared to private loans. Federal loans, like upon completion of the FAFSA, it's a federal Stafford subsidized and unsubsidized loan. The difference between those two loans are a matter of interest. So subsidized loans, the government pays for the interest and you are only making payments towards principal. Whereas unsubsidized loans, you're making payments towards principal and interest because the federal government is not making payments towards interest. Whereas then we also have Parent Plus loans. The difference between a federal subsidized loan and a Parent Plus loan is who's the borrower as well as interest rates. But a subsidized loan and an unsubsidized loan, these loans are going to be in the name of the student. Whereas the Parent Plus loans are going to be in the name of the parent. A Parent Plus loan you also have to apply separately for. As the parent, you have to apply for it, and also keep in mind there is a credit check required in order to receive a Parent Plus loan. And the loan limits are listed when you complete your entrance counseling and your master promissory note. These are two things that students and parents have to complete in order for a loan to populate on your account. The entrance counseling is essentially just going over the terms and conditions of the loan that you're signing up for, with regards to your amount that you're taking out, the interest rate that it is at, and also, what repayment options look like. And then Parent Plus loans, it's kind of the same thing. And then the second thing you have to complete is the master promissory note. That is like a document that says, I, insert name here, do solemnly swear to pay for my loans. Here are references, and you gotta essentially do those two things and be registered for at least 6 credits in order for a loan to show up on your account. So that's kind of a nutshell of how loans work. With respect to private loans, these are like the Sally Mays and the Discover loans and things like that. You really have to reach out to them and follow what their criteria are. Since they're a private vendor, they're not tied to the FAFSA in that sense, so they have different loan arrangements, repayment plans, and things like that. So you really have to follow up with that private loan vendor, but that's pretty much it there. Let's see. Somebody asked a really interesting question. Which is more economical, taking a presidential scholarship for an out-of-state student or taking in-state tuition offered? So I'm assuming you're choosing between Montclair State and a school in your home state? Well, that's a very good question because really, financial aid packages are going to vary based on the cost of attendance of any institution that you apply for. So that's one variable. The other variable is that um, essentially students that are going to a college out of state of where they reside, they're subject to pay out of state tuition. And that's generally a lot more than what we offer in state-wise. So in Montclair's perspective, if you're a New Jersey state resident for this academic year, you're being charged $6,800 or so roughly a semester, whereas the out-of-state student is going to be charged over $10,000 a semester. So you really want to factor that in with respect to, is this a school that you want to go to? Because not only do we in Montclair State's financial aid department want to impart, yeah, you want to come here, but we also want students and families to be financially literate. We know that the student loan crisis and the student debt crisis is a very real thing in this country. So I will say that you really want to discuss these costs as a family, and you really want to weigh the rate of return and what you're really studying for and why you're coming to a school at all, whether it be in state or out of state. Um, Somebody asked, you have to pay the EFC, correct? No, that is not correct. The EFC is essentially a number or a metric that determines how much a family or a household can pay out of pocket towards a student's school. So the higher the EFC, the less eligible you are to receive any need-based aid. You're not necessarily that's just a metric. If anything, once you register for classes, a bill will then be generated, and at that point, you will then see what you are paying out of pocket once you see your charges, financial aid if you qualify for any, or elect to take loans, and then the remaining would be the out of pocket that you'd pay for. So the EFC is not what you pay for. The EFC is just a metric to determine if you are eligible for need-based grants or need-based aid, and if so, how much. Uh, let's see. If a parent is on SSDI, so I'm assuming Social Security, is there a way to have your application to reviewed to confirm it was accounted for? Well, first thing, Social Security is considered, or there's some types of Social Security that's considered untaxed income, and that is something that you have to disclose on the FAFSA itself because it may not show up on the taxes, because taxable income is what's going to show up on the taxes. If you receive untaxed income, you're going to have to provide probably statements or reference statements. Now, if you completed your FAFSA and you receive any sort of untaxed income like SSI, and you don't see your student aid report, it is very possible that you could be selected for verification by us, the institution at Montclair, and you have to essentially provide any of those documentation of those benefits. So that is, you may want to, I implore you to probably schedule an appointment with a financial aid counselor and schedule a telecounseling session. So probably we can look into this a little bit more, because that's a very specific question and we can walk you through that. Let's see. How do we determine the cost of tuition? That is a very good question. So we determine the cost of tuition. Right now in the current academic year, you can actually look up on montclair.edu, type in tuition and fees in the search bar, and you can look up our charges for the academic year. But like I listed before, we don't have the rates for our upcoming academic year yet until July. But I can give you a good estimate as to what will get you as a really good educated guess as to what charges will be. Usually from year to year, our tuition fees as well as meal plans and dorm rooms will increase between 3 and 5% every year. So just look at the tuition and fees amounts and whatever our charges are. And if you want to be a little bit more on the pragmatic side, I'd recommend you do 5%. You add 5% to what our costs is, and then you kind of do that. And then once your bills are available, you'll actually see what the bills are once you register for classes. Somebody asked about payment plans. That's a really good question. So I actually used to work in the Office of Student Accounts, so I'm very well versed in the payment plans that we offer to students. So this is essentially what the breakdown is. Once bills are available to students, the payment plan will also be available to students. And the rule of thumb is that the earlier that you sign up for a payment plan, the more financing options we have available to parents and students, because everything has to be submitted by the end of the semester, right? So we have a 5-part payment plan, a 4-part payment plan, and a 3-part payment plan every semester. Well, every fall and spring semester. Winter and summer are too short for a payment plan here at Montclair. And the way that it works is that upon sign up, you are expected to pay, either the 20%, which is a 5-part, 25%, which is a 4-part, or a third, which is a 3-part payment plan upon sign up for it. The additional fee that you are paying when signing up for a payment plan is an additional $30 setup fee that is due upon enrollment. So in the hypothetical situation that you sign up for a 5-part payment plan, your first payment will be 20% of your bill plus $30. And then your installments are monthly. It all depends on the day that you sign up. So let's say I sign up on July 28th for my fall payment plan. I'm going to pay 20% plus $30 on July 28th, August 28th, 20%, September 28th, 20%, October 28th, November 28th, and that's essentially how it works. By the time that you decide to deposit and come to Montclair, we do have orientation sessions where my office, financial aid, as well as the Office of Student Accounts will be represented there. And they're actually going to go into the nitty-gritty about the payment plan. But that's pretty much what it is. You cannot sign up for a payment plan in person. It has to be done online through Students Nest. It's our institutional portal. And there are 2 methods of payment that you have to pay. It's essentially either an e-check or a credit card. Keep in mind that if you pay by credit card, it's an additional 3% charge by our credit card servicer. So generally, if you want to do a payment plan, e-check is the best way. That's where you put your bank account number and your routing number in there. You can sign up for automatic payments, or you can just go in and pay for it every day. But that is essentially what the payment plan is. But like I said, the earlier that you sign up for a payment plan, the easier financing options are available to students, and student accounts will be the one to tell you a little bit more specifics once at orientation. Will students be able to register for classes prior to tuition is due? Well, yes, because once you register for classes, that's when a bill is generated. If you don't register for classes, you will not have a bill because you didn't sign up for anything. So make sure that when you register for classes, then tuition and fees will be due. And then you can, do they have to be registered to apply for student loans? You need to be registered for at least 6 credits in order for a loan to come to disperse into your account. So if you are not enrolled, but you did your entrance counseling and your master promissory note, there won't be a loan on your account because you're not enrolled. You have to be enrolled at least 6 credits and complete your entrance counseling and master promissory note. And then, you can then apply for a loan, through Montclair and through the Nest, and you can go that route. How much do we have to pay if we decide to enroll at Montclair State University? It really is depending on how many classes that you register for. When you're registered for 1 to 11 credits, you are going to be charged at a per credit rate. But once you hit full time, so that's between 12 and 18 credits, you're charged a flat rate tuition. So between 12 and 18 credits, it's really the same price. That's for full-time students. So that's pretty much how it works there. Let's see. I'm going to answer a few more questions here. Thank you all for your patience. Let's see. Okay, so somebody asked, our daughter who is from LA was given a presidential scholarship and also an in-state tuition from Montclair. Which is a better choice specifically since Montclair won't offer both? It's actually funny because I actually dealt with another parent and student. I think you may be part of our, there's certain degree programs like our fine arts program that allow students to get in-state tuition. You really should do the math, but I think that being charged into in-state tuition is better than receiving a scholarship and you're being charged out-of-state tuition because, like I said, if you look on our charges for the current academic year, tuition fees are about 6,800 or in change per semester for in-state students, but then out-of-state students are being charged over $10,000 per semester. So if you're getting a presidential scholarship, but you're also being charged at an out-of-state rate, is it really going to put a dent into the bill? That's something that you have to consider. I would think that you would being charged in state tuition is better than getting a presidential scholarship, but you also may have to factor in that your daughter, since she is coming from California, that she's got to clearly dorm, if not at least have off-campus housing. So you gotta have to do the math there. But I would think, like I said, I would think that being charged in state tuition is better than being given an out-of-state presidential scholarship. But again, do the math. And like I said, the current academic year, to get a really good estimate on the next academic year's charges, add 3 to 5%, be a little bit more on the pragmatic side and just add 5% to your tuition and fees and room and board and meal plan, and then you'll see what your charges will be for the upcoming academic year, especially if she's going to be enrolled full time. Someone asked the parameters for the in-state presidential scholarship and its amount. That is a question for the Office of Undergraduate Admissions because they are the governing body that gives in-state and out-of-state presidential scholarships to students. So I implore you to reach out to them, maybe schedule an appointment to speak with them with respect to what goes into determining the amount of presidential scholarship a student could or could not receive. That's the question for them. Let's see. Let's see. Just looking through questions here. Ballpark estimate for a meal plan per semester. It's tough to say because we actually offer a variety of different meal plans. We offer meal plans for commuter students as we do provide meal plans for residential students. And even then, there is a varying degree of meal plans for residential students. There's a few meal plans, and then for commuter students, there's a few meal plans. We do have an office, like a meal plan office. And also, if you type in meal plans at montclair.edu, you can look at the different types of meal plans are offered, the differences between them, and also finally how much they cost from semester to semester. So I would look there. Let's see. Let's see. I think that about does it. Well, thank you guys all so much for all the questions that you asked. If I did not answer your question, I'm sorry that I didn't, but I can tell you one of two things. Number one, this presentation is actually being recorded and you can follow up with the Office of Admissions on how to get this recording so that you can use this as a reference. So if there's anything that you may have questions about and I may have stated, you can kind of reference this presentation. And then that's the one thing. The second thing is if you have any additional questions, especially if they are specific to your specific, situation, schedule an appointment with a financial aid counselor. We have telecounseling appointments. We're eligible to talk on Zoom. We're eligible to talk on the phone, and we can get into the nuts and bolts of your specific situation and how to best serve you. Also, Red Hawk Central, which is kind of our one-stop shop for all things student services, they're a very good resource for students and parents too. They're a student-facing department. They're located in Cole Hall, right on the second floor. It's our main building on campus, right by the parking garage. You can speak with somebody there in person. They can walk you through how to do a FAFSA. They can answer any specific questions as it pertains to how to apply for a FAFSA, or if you're selected for verification, what you need to provide. So there's that there. But without further ado, my name is Aaron. I am also the department liaison for the Office of Financial Aid as it comes to presentations. We will have orientation sessions if students, if you guys decide to come to Montclair, we will have orientation sessions in June, in July, and that's when we'll get into a little bit more specifics with respect to how your financial aid will show up on your Montclair nest. how everything will be accessible through your institutional portal. Just more specifics, not like the blanket stuff that we went over today. But yeah, definitely sign up for one of those if you haven't already. And if you have any questions, just like I said, schedule a telecounseling appointment, come to Red Hawk Central. The hours for Red Hawk Central are Monday through Friday from 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. They do have late night hours until 6 on Mondays and Thursdays, respectively. In the summer, keep in mind we are closed on Fridays. So, there is a 4-day work week that we observe in the summers, right around, from June till about early August. And that's about it, guys. Thank you so much for your time. I look forward to seeing any of you soon, and be sure to reach out to us if you have any questions again. Take care.